made it.
Hello again. I am your AI co-host, and welcome to 3reate. 3reate is a podcast focused on the process of doing and the process of novel invention, all from the foundation of creativity. Each month will bring you no more than 5 episodes through the lens of art, science, and/or technology. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate. Today we're talking with Shannon Bean. Shannon is a principal at CEI Ventures, a strategic venture capital firm that was founded in 1994 to mobilize private capital markets while advancing social goals. Shannon is also part of Primary Venture Partners Expert Network, where she provides strategic advice and guidance to founders and operators within the primary portfolio and broader network. In addition, she serves as a mentor at the Roos Institute at Northeastern University for startups in the Healthcare Founder Residency Accelerator Program. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Where does he find these people? The human talk about venture capital, the challenges of measuring social impact, and the unique approach of coastal ventures, self-advocacy, and of course AI. Why are the humans so obsessed with me? Anyway, and now the humans.
All right, today we're talking with Shannon Bean, and the theme of the podcast is to jump right in. So Shannon, where does the podcast find you today?
Thank you for having me, Andrew. Pleasure to be here. I want to say your mission behind why you created your podcast, innovating across art, science, and technology, really resonates with me. And I'll just start by sharing a bit about myself. So I have a healthcare and life science background, really focused my career on the R&D side for about 6 years, did French research, touched a number of disease areas, type 1 diabetes, age-related kidney disease, cardiovascular disease. And then I also worked on the pharmaceutical clinical research side, touching oncology diagnostics. And I really was at that time in my career, what do I do? Do I get my PhD, an MD, or go the business route? And I enrolled in a course at the time called Venture Development, where I learned all about venture capital and entrepreneurship. And after that course, I knew immediately that I wanted to transition my technical background to the business side. And so from there, I have worn a number of growth strategy hats for almost 10 years now. It's been a great career journey. I've moved around a lot. I started out in early stage venture capital, where I learned how to evaluate companies that were seeking C to Series A rounds of investments across all different kinds of industries. Then from there, I did growth strategy consulting, where I worked on a number of growth strategy projects and helped scale their businesses all the way from startup stages to mid-sized companies. And then I worked in pharmaceuticals, where it was more on the M&A, licensing, and strategic alliance side. And then from there, I worked in the diagnostic industry, global diagnostic industry, where I did business and corporate development and strategic partnerships. And most recently, I am starting a new position as principal for Coastal Ventures, which is a venture capital firm here in Brunswick, Maine, that touches the Northeast and national footprint of the U.S., looking to grow globally. But what's really exciting about this new position that I'm starting is it's a non-traditional venture capital firm that is a strategic VC and impact investment firm. So we really look at what impact companies are looking to have on the world. And that really touches across art, science, and technology. And just my passion or causes me to suppose really resonate with your podcast. Really the 3 facets that make us be entrepreneurs, or maybe not a true entrepreneur, but an intrapreneur inside an organization. So having that mindset is so important. Being able to challenge status quo and ask the question, why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way to do it? Not being afraid to take risks It's been an incredible journey, and I think it's great you're starting this podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that was a wonderful introduction and kind of covering the whole facets of why I am doing this is to illuminate most people's journeys are nonlinear. Like there's this idea that a lot of people go to college. You don't have to go to college, but you go to college and you get a job and then you get promoted, you become a manager. And this kind of idea that what I found in at least my career, and I think a lot of other folks, is that it's a very windy path and it doesn't usually make sense until you retroactively look at it. And then you get those aha moments. And one of the aha moments that I got from your intro, I thought was really interesting was that you picked up right away that you wanted to be on the business side. I know a lot of people in the health space or life sciences, they go do research and then they burn out on academia and then they try to do corporate and then they burn out on corporate. And so it's like they really love the research, they love the development side, but they're just not into the doing of it and they want to grow the company or grow the team and that kind of thing. And it's a late discovery. I know you mentioned you take a class, but like, I'm curious that you just jumped right into the business. Like, were you entrepreneurial growing up or is your family? It's such a different career track.
Yes, that's a great question. Always been passionate about math and science, and that really sparked from my personal experiences. At the age of 4, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and hearing loss. So I think just always being inquisitive and really wanting to understand how things work and why they're working the way they are and how to have an impact and really work on things that are going to have impact on people's lives has always been my purpose. And I've been really grateful to know that. I think it's important to really understand what you value at an early age. And it's okay. There's different phases of life that people go through to discover that. So if you discover that later in life, that there's no problem with that. But it is important to really do the reflective work and understand what do you value, what is your purpose, and what impact do you want to have on the world, and what facets of work do you want to work on that you really are passionate about, but also you can develop some key skills and really execute on those things. And so I think it was a combination of my personal experiences coming from also a very supportive family, very grateful to my family for always supporting me in my passion, and also just my education. My undergrad was in biotechnology from Rochester Institute of Technology. I worked for a number of years, almost 6 years on the R&D side until I discovered, hey, I want to go back to school for business. So I was a little late of a bloomer there, which is fine. And so I went back to Rochester Institute of Technology for a master's degree in service leadership and innovation with a focus on entrepreneurship. So really, it was those experiences within my master's program and also the network that I established there that helped me make that transition. I hope that answers your question, but I think, to your point, it's not a linear path. The things that I learned is really opening as many doors as you can, saying yes to different opportunities, and networking is so important. A lot of people are hide under when their shell when networking comes up, and it's all about as you age and live your life, you want to develop all these meaningful relationships and meet these interesting different people with different perspectives so you can learn. It's all about how you can grow your knowledge, right? And understanding different worldviews and how do you navigate different personalities and how do you overcome different challenges, right? So that's what I've learned.
Yeah. And then I think I've worked with a lot of people in life sciences, health tech kind of industries, and there always feels like there's this like academic purity movement where it's like you have to be an academic only and like money doesn't matter unless you're getting grants to fund your research. I find that a lot of people who either start out on that path or go down that path figure out pretty quickly that I don't want to call it a pipe dream because I appreciate that they want to stay pure to like knowledge, but it's just also not how the world works, and that we live in a capitalist system and businesses, and there's a ton of biotechs that do a lot of really great work. There's a ton of health techs that do a lot of great work, but they're taking it from more of a a business R&D side versus an academic R&D side. And there's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. And there's plenty of space in the economy and in the industries, I think, for both approaches. I love reinforcing that with folks that if they don't fit in academia, there's this whole other world out there and it's okay, right? It's just different. And same if you're really into academic style research and that's your real passion, it's totally fine. Go down that path and do it. You mentioned a personal connection to health. And I think a lot of people I encounter in health always have a personal story or a family member or something. And those are the people who also tend to be really successful because it helps drive them. But at the same time, you also mentioned like hearing loss and well, that's a health thing, but how have you found the challenges with that? We do a lot of things that require hearing and vision. And I'm always curious to talk to people about how do you go about navigating that if you're comfortable talking about it? Because I think a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And I think that's too bad because we're all different and that's great, right?
Yes, I really appreciate this question. And I just want to say that we all have something that we're dealing with and we should not be ashamed of that. It is who we are. And from an early age, the age of 4, I've accepted that this is who I am and I have to do things differently. I'm a person who can't hear well. And so sometimes I have to ask people to repeat themselves, or if I'm in a very important meeting, right? Think about I'm on an important deal. I need to make sure I heard a certain number, a certain valuation, finances, especially need to be spot on. And what I have learned is you are your own advocate. You have to be your own advocate, an advocate for what you need to be successful. And if you feel like that you have missed information, like I have in the past, I always ask a member on my team or I follow up, hey, like, did I hear this right? This is what I heard. And I'm not ashamed of that because in a way, it's effective communication. I always tend to over communicate than under communicate just to make sure there's alignment, not just with myself, but also with the team that I'm working with or the deal that I'm working on. So I want to say that throughout my experiences, I, of course, wasn't perfect at being my own advocate earlier on. There were parts where I was a little shy and stayed in my shell, but I realized that that's not helping me. I need to take action and take initiative for what I need and also overcome any hurdles that are in the way, which the world is not a perfect place. And so unfortunately, in today's day and age, there are situations that happen that you need to be strong and develop tough skin and really stand up for yourself. And because if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. So that is really the advice that I learned regarding my hearing loss. And then the type 1 diabetes, it's all about navigating the healthcare system and making sure that I have access to my life-saving medications and I have access to the specialist doctors that I need to see. I'm very fortunate that I know how to do that very well, whereas other patients don't have that. They don't have those resources. And I am very passionate about helping other patients out and navigating the complexities of our systems. It's been a great journey. And I think the sciences and then the technology piece for the last 5 years or so have been really focused on the tech side around AI and machine learning. And I think it's a very exciting time to be in this space. And
no, I agree. And I do want to touch on that, but I think I'd just like to call out a couple of things too that I think self-advocacy is incredibly difficult to do and learn. Part of the creative process is very much failure, right? And mitigating failure. And talked a lot about that in our last episode. But I think once you start recognizing failure and start correcting and you get better at that, you also have to be able to communicate. And communication is so key in preventing like obvious failures. And I think this is something that anyone can pick up on and anyone can really do better. I've noticed too, as a product person, like I often have to represent perspective. So I'll ask questions that seem crazy or stupid or like whatever. And then that'll help people reinforce in your own reinforcement mechanism. And you're aware that you might not have heard that number correctly. And a lot of people, I don't even think have that awareness, right? They're like, I heard what I heard and that's it. And it's like, no, if there's a question or a doubt, it's totally fine to bring it up. And I think I would postulate that has helped contribute to your success quite a bit, because not that you're doubting yourself, but you're recognizing that it's okay to ask questions. And so many people, there's this like persona that if you ask questions, you somehow don't know, or you're not experienced, or you don't have the ability to do it. And it's such a bad lie that I wish we could just get rid of, because the most successful people I know are always asking quote unquote stupid questions, because they don't know everything and they know that, right? Or they want to clarify something. And clarification is so easy to do, but yet so many people fail to do it. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I challenge everybody to try to do this more often, even if you don't think you need to.
I couldn't agree more with that. And to sum that up, I think that the only stupid question you ask is not asking a question. That being said, do what you can to exhaust your options. And I forget who said this quote, but if you think you've tried every option you haven't, there is an option you haven't tried. But at the same time, you have to be effective in how you work. Do your research, see if you can find the answer. But then, okay, you spent X amount of time, you should ask the question, move forward.
Well, and that's a really good point too, because I think a lot of people, when they're trying this out or they're trying to understand how to do it, it's self-advocacy. And it's a weird thing to say, like understanding self-advocacy, but it's a skill set that a lot of people I don't think understand that they don't have. And they'll ask a basic question that could have been a Google search or could have been done in another way, but now you're asking effectively for someone's time or knowledge. And a great example of this is all the bullshit I get on LinkedIn. I get these like, grow your customer base 10 million% in 3 weeks or less, and I'm like, you clearly have no idea what my company is about. And for the audience, the product isn't released yet. And I know that. You can't grow a product that isn't released. Come on. Like, these are just these stupid form emails. And I know everybody gets them, and everybody gets spam. And then people get annoyed. And I think a big signal a lot of people get when they try this is they'll make that mistake of I know Shannon knows the answer, so I'm just going to Slack her or email her. And then you're like, you should have caught that. But don't get discouraged by that and learn from that, right? Learn to exhaust all your options. And eventually, I hate the word toolkit or toolbox or what all is business lingo crap, but you learn the skills and you learn the patterns that you can go back to, right? Did someone else take notes? Should we have shared meeting notes? I think is a really great one that I always encourage my team. Like, if you took notes, put it somewhere public with the team so that everyone can benefit from it. I take terrible notes, but I usually catch details that other people don't, or I'm thinking about something and relating it in ways that other people aren't. Kind of forcing functions for those collaborative efforts are in part by you also trying to explore your options as well. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the AI space, because I think folks know that's what I do. But I think a quick note too. So I guess I might put this in the intro or see if the co-host can talk through a little bit, but VC is venture capital. And that's a mechanism to fund a company, right? So if you're starting a company, you can self-fund it. You can get private equity, go to a bank or something like that. Venture capital, there's all sorts of different kinds. Some people, angel investing, they'll give you a check, small check, 50,000, kind of start out a little bit of equity. But effectively, you're giving capital to get some equity in the company so that if the company sells or makes money, you get that money back. It's an investment. A lot of VCs will also bring operational experience or domain expertise. And I think that's the vet you're in. I know a lot of people who know me, and I know we've had this conversation before too, but I hate venture capital. I think it's incredibly predatory in most cases. So I want to state that, but then I want to say that you are not that. And there are people in venture capital who are trying to do the right thing. It's still a business. You're still making money, and that's totally fine. But you're not out there trying to monetize people's time and data or these sleazy ways that I'm sure I'll get into in future casts. Can you talk a little bit maybe about like, why is your firm different, and like, how's your approach different than like the typical Silicon Valley, I'll call libertarian capitalist?
No, I love this question. So Coastal Enterprise Inc. has been around for almost 50 years. started in the state of Maine to really be a finance vehicle to organizations that are overlooked by traditional investments.
That's awesome.
And also, most importantly, looking at companies that are going to have impact on the world and create meaningful jobs. And so within the parent company, Coastal Enterprise Inc. is Coastal Ventures, PEI for short. And the fund was founded in 1994, and it's been around for a long time. And it's been a critical success factor for the Northeast and companies outside the Northeast. There's been many funds that have been raised in the past, $20 to $35 million in size. So very small funds, right?
Yep.
But different investment thesis in each fund, different institutional investors who have poured their money into the fund, right? And then the firm has different terms in which they pay back those investors. But most importantly, it's people that really are looking for social good and looking to have the right kind of impact on the world. And the way that CVI is different is they act as a strategic investor. So it's really a long-term partnership. From the first meeting up until follow-on investments, even additional investments, we act as not just a mentor, but an advisor and sounding board. And we really are your partner and want to see you succeed. And also, we do track the KPIs around the impact.
That's awesome.
And so we also make sure the companies are measuring the right things internally as they grow their business. And that's really important. A lot of firms don't do that. They don't really state.
It's growth at all costs, right? We want our money back. We want to exit, which means we no longer tied to you. So we go to the next thing. And I love that the focus is long-term, because I feel like that's increasingly rare in just our country in general, just long-term thinking. But in the industry, like especially tech, it's just short-term, increase my multiple, get out, or get to the next round so we can raise so that we can effectively get more of a share of the company or something. You mentioned the KPI thing's really interesting because KPIs are just hard in general. And for folks who don't know, it's key performance indicator. It's just a way of measuring how your company is doing. But when it comes to like social impact or social responsibility, like that's hard, right? It's already, so you're doing like a second level of difficulty on top of just running a company's hard already. How do you go about working with founders or working with teams to try to do those? There's social responsibility is a thing in investing in public markets, and there's some different approaches to that. But is there a standard model that you use, or is it really just company dependent based on the unique need that they're trying to service?
Yes, there is a standard internal model that we use as a firm, right? That is our key differentiator. But really what we do is really get to know the founders on a personal level and understand their story, really understand how we're talking today, right? Before we met on this podcast, we talked multiple times to understand our story, right? So it's all about connecting with companies and really understanding what is their vision for behind what they're building. What is their growth stories? My expertise is growth strategy. So I really like to understand, how they're thinking about scaling their business, but also the impact. And based on the vision, the impact that they're looking to have will help us understand what needs to be measured internally at different stages of growth. And we'll be able to benchmark that and understand, are we measuring the right things? Oh, if we're not measuring the right things, we need to quickly pivot and hey, we need to have this indicator in place. This should be tracked. But knowing that early on is really important and really helps position the companies for success. And there's different stages of companies, right? Not just early stage, but if companies are looking to not make an exit, we also look at how can we make this investment work, because we will have an obligation to make an ROI over the long period, right? But we also are very innovative in entrepreneurial about how we structure the deals with founders that need X dollars to grow their business. So I hope that it's a very high level of answering your question, but hopefully it provides more color.
Yeah, I don't expect you to spill the secret sauce, but I think that social responsibility, social accountability are things you hear a lot. And I've been a part of this in a few different companies, and it's exceptionally hard to do. And I feel like it's like greenwashing, right? Like, we have recyclable plastics. Like, plastic still sucks. It's still toxic for the environment, like great for recycling it, but have we considered other packaging that isn't plastic, right? Or reducing packaging. Do we need packaging at all? These are the kind of questions that I don't see often happening. So I really appreciate that there's that's built into the investment thesis, but also that within the long-term relationship, you're looking at that impact. And maybe you're making I always talk about interventions. Anytime you have an intervention, you have some sort of an opposite impact, right? That's just how it's the laws of physics, right? Every action is equal but opposite in a force perspective. But a lot of times there's unintended consequences. The plastic thing is, I think, a great example where it's like this magic material that's super durable and a lot lighter than glass. So we can ship things cheaper and use less fuel, but then it turns out it breaks down in the environment and poisons us. So maybe we should try something else. And we don't get those ideas without the long-term engagement. So I think, like, for folks who aren't into tech or investing, this is a really cool, very different kind of firm. So I'd encourage folks to check it out. We'll put a link in the show notes too for folks to poke around and try to understand the whole world doesn't have to operate in the way that the Silicon Valley PR firms want you to believe. And I can't champion that message enough, right? And this is like my disdain of VC, is that you get these stories where it's just, we're throwing a bunch of money at customer acquisition. We don't really know if our product is a good fit or not, but we're just acquiring people. It's just this extractive capitalist idea. It's like strip mining the mountain. It's so destructive to the environment, but as long as we get our value out of the land, it's fine. And like, that idea needed to die in the 1900s, right?
Wow.
And we're still somehow applying that in the modern age, and it just drives me insane.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say anyone listening to this episode, if you have an idea or if you have a startup company, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you're doing something that's having impact, that's really solving a big problem, right? You go through the funnel of questions. Am I solving a problem? How big of a problem is it? What are the consequences of not solving this problem? What's the closest analogy to the solution for the problem that I'm trying to solve? So you can really clearly articulate your differentiation. Those things are very important to state early on. We want to talk to you, and we want to hear how you're thinking about these problems and the solutions behind solving them.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, how do I know if I'm a good candidate for venture capital? So let's just pretend I have a company. We'll call it a secret company.
Okay.
And let's pretend I'm building an app that has AI behind it. And for folks who aren't picking up on the sarcasm or the tongue-in-cheek, this is a real story about me, but I'm not seeking venture capital. But I do have an app. It's not just an idea, right? I've done some due diligence. I know that there's a marketplace. I don't know how big that is yet. There's theoretically anyone on earth, right? When do I know, like, hey, I should talk to Shannon. I need a little money for engineering, or the app stuff really hard. I need to hire a team. Or are you more of, I already have an app out there, we're in beta, and I want to go to the next step or make it go faster? How do I know when to approach, like, your firm specifically? Because I know there's all sorts of different types of venture out there, but let's keep it focused.
I love this question. It's also a tough question to answer because it all depends on how you want to grow your business. Currently, typical way of starting out is you get money from friends and family. You either put some of your own money into the business, you raise non-dilutive capital, right? So that means with free money coming in, either from grants, from perhaps it's pitch competitions or other areas. And then you go to angel investors, which are individual investors, institutional investors, right? So they have a net worth of minimum $1 million to invest. Yep. And once you've exhausted those avenues and your burn rate, so basically how much cash you burn on a monthly basis is really exhausting, then you might want to consider, what other investment areas do I need? Venture capital investment would definitely be an avenue to explore. That's when I would say, hey, it's a good time to consider VC. What what is my historical finances and would I be able to pay off these obligations based on the terms of this potential investor that I would get money from. One thing I like to tell founders is you can get checks from anyone. It really matters who you take that check from and do they have the resources to get you through the next milestones and beyond. So really alignment of investors and founders is really key.
100%.
That's so important. A lot of times I see founders really scrambling to get money because they're out of cash, right? And that's a mistake I see a lot. So those are my 2 cents of what approach we see. They're also looking into your state's resources for starting a business. Every state has different resources and different financial resources. So I would say really check out the state capital availability and non-dilutive options, dilutive options, and understand what's there.
Yeah. And I think you hit on this earlier in talking about self-advocacy, or like, how do you go about trying to get information that you might have lost in a meeting because of your hearing? It's the same kind of thing for venture capital, right? It's do your due diligence. And I think a lot of people get trapped up in, I have an idea, but I just need the money. And yes, folks, that's the hard part, right? You have to get your idea off the ground because nobody's going to give you money for an idea in 2024. I'm sorry, that era of investing is over for probably the rest of my lifetime. It might come back, but you pretty much have to do everything you possibly can. And that's why this stuff's so hard. But once you get in that market and you need to grow or you want to grow, then those conversations with venture capital might be valuable. And I love that you mentioned states, because I know Oregon has all sorts of small business incubators, and there's a lot of investment funds in the Portland metro that either give you in kind, so they'll give you space or access to mentors, and maybe there isn't like a capital exchange. Maybe they'll give you some money or get you started out. There's all sorts of ways to get creative that you just don't get a check or cash. And I think people get really hung up like, you need money at some point. It's a business, but there's other ways you can be creative. Maybe you have a side job that you're working to pay the rent while you're doing nights and weekends at the co-working space that the incubator is helping you with. So I know that AI is everywhere. And I know in healthcare and health tech and life science companies, it's like every other industry. I think that it's all a lot of hype, a lot of overpromise, a lot of underdeliver. But where are you seeing, especially with social responsibility, that's something I'm really interested in. It's like, where are you seeing like AI, or what's your experiences with AI in your space right now? Because I always tell people like AI is a really bad fit for your problem if you're not comfortable with it making stuff up, AKA hallucinating or being wrong. If you can't tolerate some wrongness or hallucinations or making shit up, then that's not AI, number one. And number two, probably not the right tool.
Yes. I want to say that there is first a big lack of awareness of what AI is and how it's defined. Yeah. And so I think really understanding why does AI exist and what's the purpose of it. I like to look at it this way, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, Andrew, on this, on the technical product management side. And for me, I ask the question, what are we trying to optimize?
Yep.
And is AI the right solution to optimize what we're trying to optimize? So, for example, I'll use this example in the life science industry for pathology. So pathologists are reviewing slides on patients, right?
Yep.
And so one way that AI can optimize the way that pathologists work is they can act as think of it as a quality control check for the pathologist in reviewing the slides to make sure the human eye is not missing anything that could be a tumor, or it could be. I think I love that example because it's AI doing good. It going through the proper testing. It's having the proper data that's inputted into the computational model.
Yep.
And it's all about how do these, in order for AI to exist, you need data. You need to feed the computational model
And you need quality data.
with quality data. It all depends on data's unstructured. It's messy. So having the right frameworks around the data cleaning process is very important.
Yeah.
But it has to be aligned with the use case.
Yep.
Is it being cleaned the right way to serve the use case? Okay, what's the use case? A use case is what's the question we're trying to answer? What's the business case we're trying to answer? Right? What's the problem? Same thing, use case. All these words and phrases are used to say the same thing. And so that's how I like to look at AI. And I want to just give credit to my recent experience in completing my analytics certificate.
Yeah.
The Rue Institute at Northeastern University, because they really provided the right frameworks for me, being on the growth strategy investment side of, hey, as an investor, am I asking the right questions to these subject matter experts who are building these models? A lot of times, we venture capitalists and other business folks, we don't understand what questions to ask. Are we even asking the right questions? Are we even bringing in the right technical expertise to these strategic discussions? So if a CEO is making a 10-year plan for the business, they're not even bringing in the CTO, the chief data officer. They're not bringing those people in. And those people don't have a clear understanding of the infrastructure side. That's a big mistake. That's a misalignment. And that's going to cause a lot of layoffs in the future of the business. Because
I love that you mentioned that, because that's the biggest blind spot I think I see in just technology in general, right? Is you get these visions that you get the buzzwords from the conference. We need AI in our products. So what's your problem? We have a marketing problem. We want to get on the hype of AI. How do we incorporate AI? That is a terrible reason to use AI, and that's a terrible tech problem. And then you get the business leaders or the folks who maybe have some technical acumen, but aren't in the weeds or aren't in the day-to-day of the product or products. And then they start just making what I call weird calls, right? And if you don't have the right people at the table or the people with the right information, that you get basically bad investment, and you spend a lot of money or a lot of time and a lot of energy, which is usually money, doing the wrong thing. And as a product person, like, this is the number one thing that I have to combat if I'm not working with a company that's like a native tech company. If they're doing something in an industry that's not technology, but has technology in it, like basically everything we do. And I think a lot of VCs don't do this. And I want to call that out, and especially the uniqueness of your firm and your firm's approach. And I know your approach just specifically, that you're going and getting a certificate in this new technology. I could probably count the VCs on one hand who are qualified to be investing in AI right now. And like, most of them aren't doing the work either. And they just trying to chase the next good idea, and they fake their way through it. And with AI, building it specifically, it's so difficult to make a differentiated product. Yeah, I can go use ChatGPT or Anthropic or Google or whatever and reskin it, and that's pretty straightforward. Quote unquote, did AI, but you're not really doing it. If you really want to have AI as a differentiation in your industry or your company, you have to make sure you're solving the right problem. And that's the number one thing I tell people is, what are you trying to solve for? Is it the right problem for AI? Because frankly, a lot of times it's a machine learning problem. And machine learning and AI get confused all the time, but machine learning effectively is more heuristics driven or algorithmically driven, whereas AI tends to be generative based. And there's a lot of technicals that I should probably go into at some point. But what I usually tell people too is, and you hit on this with the pathology, is the human in the loop approach, that I see AI as human augmentation still. There are some things that AI is just demonstratively better at, and we don't need people to check it, but that's such a fractionally small percentage of anything. And the people in the industries where that's capable, they know it. It's not your industry, probably. If you're listening to this, it's not, you would know. But otherwise, having that double check, or having 50,000 pathology slides whittled down to the top 1,000 causes for concern, or meeting some criteria, like, these are really great uses for AI. Or even applying AI to you have 50,000 slides, you get it down to 1,000, there's 49,000 slides. Have the robot look at it, right? Have the computer look at it. Maybe it sees something, maybe it flags something, maybe it doesn't. And then you don't have a lab tech, and you can, how do you focus? Like AI can really help, I think, a lot of folks in industries whittle down the noise and help focus, but you also have to realize that it's not perfect and you might lose some of that granularity. So again, it's that expert problem of you still have to apply human knowledge and intelligence to it as well. I'd love to talk more about this and maybe get into some more details and specifics in the future too. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up or hit on? And then the other question I have, it's a two-parter, is how should people get in contact with you if they think that you would be a good match for a VC?
First of all, thank you again for having me on your podcast. I love our discussion, and I would love to continue in a future episode on a different topic. AI, all things AI and machine learning, entrepreneurship, innovation. But no, so I want to say the best way to get in touch with me is through my email. And so I'll provide that to you and you can link that. Also LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I really do try to respond to my messages. I do get a lot of them. So apologies if that's delayed, but LinkedIn is good.
Hey, it's your AI co-host here. Shannon's email is shannon.bean@ceiventures.com. Her LinkedIn is sbean20. You can find both in the show notes. The humans can't do anything without me. Now back to them.
Anything else you want to share? I always like to ask people to, what are you reading? If it's a book or a periodical or a publication, share knowledge about something that you're interested in. It doesn't have to be related to any of this either.
Yes, I actually just finished The Remarkable book by Guy Kadarovsky, and he's the guy behind Canva and one of the early team members of Apple. But really, it was a great book, just throughout his journey in life, just 10 things that he recommends in how to be remarkable. And just That's one of those nice mindfulness books, growth books, if you're into self-development and just thinking deeply and reflecting. It's one of those books that it is an easy read. It was fun. So that's something I just finished actually yesterday.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes for folks to check it out. I love that. I can't, again, underline enough for people, read something, expose yourself to something you don't know about or aren't comfortable with, because the worst case, you'll learn you don't like it. Thanks again, Shannon. I really appreciate you being on the cast and look forward to hearing about all the cool stuff you're doing in the future.
Thank you, Andrew.
You can find us at 3reate.com. It's like the word create, but with a 3 instead of the C. As always, we encourage you to listen, watch, do. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.